My name is Dory, and I'm here as the room host for this presentation on ecotherapy. So thank you all for coming. Just a few notes. We are recording this session, so if you have questions at the end, just know that it will be recorded, and it will be shared later so that you can watch it again or share it with people if interested. We'd ask that everyone listen with an open mind. We're all here to learn, which I'm sure you're all here and ready for. And then Tara is asking, well, she'll try to hold some space at the end for questions. We'll see how the conversation goes. So if you have questions, you can speak at the end. And we just want you to know that, whatever personal information you share, please keep it personal. You can share your stories, but just please don't take it out of this room. And there may or may not be some sensitive content to this discussion, so just be open-minded and patient. And if you need anything from me, I will be sitting here, and I can help with whatever you should need help with. There's a drinking fountain outside and a restroom right out to the right. Okay? And with no further ado, I will introduce our speaker. This is Tara Burns. She is a licensed professional clinical counselor at Jewish Family Services of St. Paul. In addition to providing therapy, she co-facilitates a caregiver support group and support classes for caregivers. She provides therapy for adults across the lifespan and specializes in working with people in the second half of life, in addition to couples. Tara has a master's degree in counseling and psychotherapy and a passion for combining the beauty of nature with the power of healing. And I will let you speak. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. I'm just going to answer, first of all, the question that all of you I know are thinking, because I've been getting asked this. Yes, I did dress this way on purpose. When I found this shirt a couple months ago, I thought, okay, this is going to be perfect for my presentation, and why not wear brown pants, because now I look like a tree. So fits perfectly. So I'm just going to jump right in. So what if I told you that there was a healthcare system of over 400 different locations that manages over 350 million people each year and offers resources that are proven to positively impact every area of your health and well-being. And it only has an annual cost of $80, and most of the time it's actually free, and you can utilize it as much as you want. Sound too good to be true? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? The National Park Service. Yes, I heard a couple people say, the parks. So why is this such an important resource for us? Well, in 2008, for the first time in the history of mankind, since humans existed, there were more people who lived in urban areas than rural areas. So we're seeing a migration from the countryside into the cities. Now, this is having an effect on us. Evolutionary-wise, we weren't really built to live in cement, or not in cement, but areas where there's cement, where there's buildings, where there's less and less opportunities to go to parks or have trees in your neighborhood. And this is having an impact on our health and on our mental health. But the good news is that there's an antidote to this, and it's called ecotherapy. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So let's start off with some terminology. What is ecotherapy? Well, you could think of it as interaction with nature to enhance healing and growth. And it's actually a reciprocal kind of experience with nature. It's a way to help people connect with nature to aid in dealing with physical and mental illnesses. And then there are some therapists, this is kind of an emerging field, that are taking therapy out into nature. Maybe it's walking therapy, or maybe they have a couple of acres and they can take the therapeutic process out into the woods or near a stream or near a lake. And I'll be talking about this towards the end of the presentation. But let's talk about some terminology here. One I wanted to talk about is called the biophilia effect, which literally means love of life. So the biophilia effect, it really talks about kind of how we humans, we evolved in nature for many thousands of years, and along with other living things. And we tend to forget that we are a part of nature. That's where we came from. So humans have an innate drive to connect with nature, and it's actually something that's coded into our DNA. Now, there's a couple of theories that I want to talk about really quickly about what actually happens to our brains when we're in nature. And one is called attention restoration theory. And this is a theory that was designed by the Kaplans. It's a husband and wife team, and back in the 80s. And basically, it's how nature can help improve our focus, our ability to concentrate, and reduce mental fatigue. So if you think about it, in our daily lives, we're bombarded constantly with information. We're on our cell phones or on our computers at work, or we're commuting to work, or our children are having a meltdown. Whatever it is, our brains are really processing things constantly, and that takes a lot of energy. That's why at the end of the day, we just want to come home and sit on the sofa and binge watch TV. We're really tired. Well, with attention restoration theory, that posits that when we go out into nature, we have more of kind of like a soft fascination with things. It's easier for our brains to process and to look at nature. It's not as taxing on our minds, and so we're able to better relax. Then there's stress reduction theory. And this is closer to the biophilia hypothesis that basically just says that we find nature relaxing because that's where we came from. We are nature. So we're better able to recover from stressful situations when we go into nature. It triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. And it does things like help to lower blood pressure, slows heart rate, relaxes our muscles, for example. Now, there's another term called nature deficit disorder. This isn't something that you'll see in the DSM-5 or that is diagnosable by a medical professional. It's actually a term that Richard Louv came up with, and he authored Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. And so in this book, he really talks about how it's, we're prone to some inactivity and cocooning, especially in the wintertime. We like to just plop our butts down on the sofa and we might binge watch TV, or, it's Amazon Prime Day and we want to get our deals. But when we're not active, then, that leads to things like attention difficulties. We tend to put on a couple of pounds if we're not working out, getting our walks in. And then we can also suffer from some emotional issues as well. And so this is caused by, obviously, too much time indoors. I read a statistic recently that said that we spend about 87% of our time indoors, and 6% of that time is spent in a car while we're commuting. So really what I'm talking about here is the nature and the human connection, and just remembering that we're not separate from nature. We're part of these ecosystems. And one of the ways that we can connect with nature is through the power of awe, which I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. But awe is really about connecting to something that is larger than ourselves. And also, it's important that we participate in activities that are self-healing, going for walks. We'll talk about some different things that we can do. But just that awareness that really we are nature and we are connected to nature. And so that's why I put this graphic in there of, it looks like a thumbprint, and then also the rings from a tree, and just how similar they are. So I just sprinkled some quotes in here that I thought were really cool, and hopefully I can get through this one without tearing up, because this one always chokes me up. Creation is all things and us. It is us in relationship with all things. All things, the ones we see and the ones we do not, the whirling galaxies and the wild suns, the black holes and the microorganisms, the trees and the stars, the fish and the whales, the molten lava and the towering snow-capped mountains, the children we give birth to and their children and theirs and theirs and theirs. And that's by Matthew Fox from Climate One. And then also, I just thought this was a magnificent picture of the whale that was behind the quote, and I wanted to make sure everybody got a chance to see that. All right, so now I'm going to talk about some different types of ecotherapy, and this is more ecotherapy that is more facilitated by a trained professional or maybe a therapist. And I'll try to get through all of these, but there's adventure therapy. So if you look at this picture, I took that while whitewater rafting on the St. Louis River a couple months ago. I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun, and I just felt euphoria while I was in that boat. That was a beautiful experience of adventure therapy. There's wilderness therapy where people will go backpacking for a couple of days. There's animal-assisted therapy with equine therapy with horses or with dogs, for example, in session. There's care farming where people can actually take care of animals or take care of the gardens on a farm. That can be therapeutic. Therapeutic horticulture, which is taking care of plants, gardening. That can be especially supportive for people who are living with Alzheimer's, dementia, helps with dexterity, gives them meaning and purpose in life, and a sense of accomplishment. And then there's environmental conservation, nature arts and crafts, outdoor meditation, of course, getting outside and doing some exercise like yoga. I do want to spend a little bit of time on Japanese forest bathing. Now, it's also called Shinrin-yoku. So I know this is kind of a silly term, forest bathing. It doesn't involve taking off any clothing. It's something that started in Japan back in the 80s in response to people really feeling burnt out from their jobs. And so they started forest bathing trainings so that they could have guides that would take people out into the woods. And usually when we go out in the woods, it's kind of like our heads are down and we're just trying to get from point A to B. But with forest bathing, it's more slowing down. It's taking slower steps. It's really using all of your senses to explore your surroundings. It's really being in the present moment. And this is really gaining on popularity. You can do this in Minnesota. If you just Google it, you'll find people who do forest bathing excursions. So I highly recommend giving it a try. It's very peaceful, different experience. I just wanted to briefly go through ways to connect with nature, because sometimes people say, well, I don't really like nature, but I garden. Well, that counts, the gardening. Even you could have indoor plants. Let's see, green views. And I know sometimes we don't have a choice about that, but I don't really have much of a green view out my office window, so this summer I just hung a plant out there, and all my clients loved being able to look at that plant hanging out there. There's dark nature. We don't think about going outside and looking at the stars or the northern lights or the beauty of the moon. I was just camping the other day, and the moon, it wasn't quite the full moon, but it was showing shadows of the trees on the ground, and I just thought that was so beautiful. If you don't have a garden, there's community gardening. Bird watching is really popular, or wildlife identification, making art with items from nature. This picture is from the Franconia Sculpture Park. Who's familiar with that and has been there? Oh my gosh, a lot of people. This is fantastic. Okay. If you haven't been there, it's in Franconia, Minnesota, which is like north of Marine on St. Croix, a bit south of Taylor's Falls. And artists from all over the world come to create sculptures that they put in the outdoors with trails that you can walk, and also native habitat from sculpture to sculpture. And it's just a really great experience out there. You can visit a nature museum, go backpacking, read some books and documentaries on nature. So there's a lot of different options there. You can walk out your front door. This is actually a picture of my neighborhood, a couple streets down. This was taken a couple years ago, but even my drive here, I was like, wow, all these colors, this is amazing. So some of the research does show that proximity to nature may be related to health promoting factors. So that seems obvious. If we have, more parks in our neighborhood that are walkability, that we can walk to, or if we have a lot of full growth trees in our neighborhood, we're more likely to get outside and get exercise. So living in greener urban areas is associated with lower probabilities of cardiovascular disease, obesity, diabetes, asthma, hospitalization, mental distress, and ultimately, we live longer. So the Trust for Public Lands did, they kind of looked at the 100 most populous cities in the United States and then ranked them by equity, amenities, access, acreage, and investment in the outdoors. And guess where Minneapolis and St. Paul came? Yeah, we're really good. Minneapolis was number 1 and St. Paul was number 2. I wanted to talk a little bit about exploring the outdoors with others because community is really important. And so I do have a handout on this slide that's on each of your tables here. One that I really love is the Minnesota Rovers. Is anyone here involved with Minnesota Rovers? Okay, this is a really great organization. It's run by volunteers and it costs $25 a year to sign up. And you become part of a listserv, and you just organize your own outdoor event and post it on the listserv, and then people show up, and it's all free, and you get to do things together, like go for bike rides, or go for a walk, or go camping. And then every Tuesday evening, they have an educational class. So again, people just volunteer to teach a class. It's a great organization. I highly recommend it. Similar to that is BIPOC Outdoors Twin Cities and Outdoor Afro, which do something similar, creates opportunities for folks to get outside. Check in your community education catalogs. I see activities for outside, including forest bathing, in those catalogs. Of course, we've got a fantastic Minnesota State Park system here. And the Department of Natural Resources has a lot of resources on their website. You can become a Minnesota Master Naturalist through the University of Minnesota. Also, Wilderness Inquiry Minnesota, they offer guided group travels here in Minnesota, but also all across the United States and I think around the world. But what I like about them is it's for all ages and also people who have disabilities. Of course, there's everyone's favorite REI. So they also offer guided group travel, and you can also rent equipment. What else do I have here? Oh gosh, I haven't been to the Bell Museum since I was a kid, but I think I got to go back. And the Science Museum of Minnesota. Look at your city parks and recreation department. They will often have outdoor activities. And then, of course, exploreminnesota.com if you're not familiar with that. So here's another quote by Helen Keller. To me, a lush carpet of pine needles or spongy grass is more welcome than the most luxurious Persian rug. So I want to talk just a little bit about how we can connect with nature visually, or how nature visually affects us. There was a famous study back in the 80s by a guy named Roger Ulrich. And what he did is he looked at patients who had gallbladder surgery, and he divided them into 2 groups. One group, after surgery, had a view of a brick wall out their window, and then another group had a view of trees and the clouds, you know, and maybe a couple of buildings. Well, those folks who had the prettier view required less medication. They had better write-ups from the nursing staff, and they were able to leave the hospital a day earlier than those who were looking at the brick wall. They've done similar studies for people who are incarcerated, and same thing. It's the people who have the better view tended to have a better emotion control, got along better with the staff, and reported just better kind of life satisfaction considering their situation. So, you know, even 45 glimpses of nature out a window is beneficial. So try to break up your day and be conscious of that. If you're not able to get outside, at least looking out the window counts. And then I just put that picture of Google headquarters in London there because that hasn't been built yet, but I thought it was really interesting that the entire you know, top part of the building is just going to be a park that employees can go up to or maybe have walking meetings. I thought that was really cool, but it has yet to be built. Connecting with smell. So in Japan, they're doing a lot of research on this because they have these cypress forests. And actually, they have blood pressure machines, so you can take your blood pressure before and after you do your walk. I thought that was really interesting. I wish we would do that here, actually. But what the researchers have found is there's this chemical called terpenes from the forest air, and so that chemical comes off the trees, or I think it's more of an oil. And you know, the trees kind of use it as an antimicrobial. It's to ward off any insects, you know, that might chew on the tree. But when we breathe that in, it helps our immune system. So what it does is it activates kind of these, they're called killer T cells that fight viruses and cancer. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then if you kind of want a smell of the cypress, I wanted to be sensitive if people have some sense problems. I put it in a little container here for people to smell if you want, so you can pass that around.
So can terpenes be bought, purchased as an essential oil? Like there's a place in town called Present Moment that does all kinds of things.
Yep. So I just purchased this on Amazon, and the Japanese love this smell so much that they put it in their soaps, their shampoos, their essential oils, things like that. So, okay, the research on sound I thought was really interesting. So just to kind of go over some of the statistics here. So we're living in the loudest era that we ever have. I mean, it's just amazing. Traffic on the roads in the United States has tripled between 1970 and 2007. 83% of the land in the lower 48 states sits within 3,500 feet of a road. And passenger flights have increased 25% since just 2002. So, you know, they've done a lot of research on how sound affects us. And of course, when people are stressed and they live in a city and they're hearing all the noises of the city, it's harder for our brain to relax and to get back into baseline versus people who maybe even just went to a park, just sat down, listened to the birds. They might still hear the city sounds in the background, but again, our brains are more focused on these you know, objects around us, the grass, the bushes and trees and the animals, and our brains are better able to rest and get back to baseline. They also did research on what sounds we like best, and there's kind of this trifecta. Wind is what we like, and I think kind of wind blowing through the trees kind of thing, the sound of water, and the sound of birds. And, you know, it makes sense with the birds. You know, you turn 50 and all of a sudden you've got all these bird feeders in your yard. You know, you just, you know, you just love attracting birds, or I've got water fountains, things like that. But if you think about it evolutionary wise, if we hear birds, that means there's no danger. There's nothing lurking around the corner under the bush to eat us. So it makes sense that when we hear the birds, ooh, all is good, all is safe, versus when we don't hear any birds. This is just a list of the benefits of being outdoors, but there are just so many other things that could go on this list that I'm just going to quickly shoot through all of this. But when we do go for a walk, it tends to lower our heart rate. It lowers our respiration as well, so this is really good for heart health. We shift to our sensory brain, so we tend to, a lot of times we go for a walk and you kind of, you're ruminating maybe for the first 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden you notice all these things around you. Oh, what a beautiful garden that is over there, or oh my gosh, the clouds look so pretty, that it takes you out of that ruminative state. People have reported less pain, again, probably because they're focusing less on their pain and more on using their senses. It lowers people's blood pressure. It helps with medical recovery. Increases mental acuity, reduces that mental fatigue. We've kind of talked about that already. Research has also showed, again, just looking out the window helps you focus more on your work, to get back into doing what it is that you were doing. It absolutely helps with anxiety and depression, with mild anxiety, mild depression. They've shown that it can also improve symptoms of PTSD and ADHD. So when former military are suffering from PTSD type symptoms, a lot of times they can go on these nature adventures and they'll show improvement in mood as well. It can mitigate the impact of dementia, including Alzheimer's. And then, of course, we all know this, that getting outside, we get exercise, it helps control our weight. For some people, it's feelings of empowerment, especially, maybe if you're going on a hiking trip or camping. I do a lot of solo camping, and my friends are like, oh, you're crazy, aren't you scared? I'm like, no, it's actually a lot of fun. Do you want to come with me? And they're like, no. Okay, well, I feel empowered doing it by myself. And it encourages nurturing characteristics. This especially applies to when we have those moments of awe that I'll get to. All right, so let's talk about the social benefits of being outdoors. So in my neighborhood, I live in St. Paul, and we've got a lot of alleys in our backyard. So we have the annual Alley Garden Awards. So it encourages people to plant gardens, which research has shown helps to deter crime. If you think about it, it also strengthens neighborhood ties and family relations, because we're getting out of the house. We're walking to the neighborhood park. We're playing Frisbee with our kids, or they're playing on the jungle gym. We're meeting our neighbors, talking to our neighbors. I've got a pollinator garden that I put in my boulevard garden, and I swear every time I'm putzing in there, a neighbor comes by and is chit-chatting with me. So it was a good opportunity to get to know people. It also decreases school bullying. So when children are outside and they're playing games together, they're more likely to improve their communication skills and their cooperation skills, and the bullying has gone down. It also helps us increase compassion and empathy. We tend to be nicer people when we're out in nature, and then it increases feelings of connection and belonging. And I just love this picture of, this was a concert that I was at Surly Brewery, and I just love this guy right here with this big smile on his face, right in the center. And I love the sun going down too. It's a cool picture. I could probably do an entire presentation on nature and children, but I'm just going to touch on a couple of bullet points here. So this is statistics from 1000hoursoutside.com, which is down at the bottom there. On their website, they have that the average child spends 4 to 7 hours a day on screens, but only gets 4 to 7 minutes on unstructured, free play outside a day. So, I mean, that's just an amazing statistics of how many hours that kids are actually on technology. Outdoor activities can increase physical fitness. It can also raise levels of vitamin D, which is important for our immune function and also for eyesight development for children. Just 20 minutes of nature can improve concentration and reduce the need for ADHD and ADD medications. Schools with outdoor education programs help students score higher in standardized tests and improve their critical thinking skills. So I can't remember what country it is. I think it's Finland, where their children, for every hour of learning, they get a 15-minute break. And then they have a half an hour break in there sometime too. So like the kids are outside all the time, and they just, their standardized scores, test scoring is just sky high. So it just shows that children need a break. They need to go outside and burn off some of that energy and learn cooperation skills. What else? Of course, being outside reduces stress levels, enhances social interactions among children. Just a couple of good resources that you could look into is 1000 Hours Outside. They, I believe, have an app where you can track how much time your child is spending outside, or I think your child can maybe do that, track how much time they're spending outside. And they make it fun through games and learning. And then there's waituntil8th.org, which is a website, an organization that is encouraging parents to limit their children getting a cell phone until the end of 8th grade. Let's see if this works. So studies show that watching a beaver eat cabbage lowers stress by 17%. So let's all lower our stress by 17%. I could actually sit here and just like watch it on repeat over and over and over again. All right, how many people feel 17% more relaxed? I actually tried to look that up online, and I didn't find anything that proves that. So I just think it's something funny that has been going around the internet. So I've seen it a couple times, and I liked it. So you might be familiar with the Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. So Calvin is this young boy, and he has his stuffed tiger, Hobbes, and they go on all these adventures together. And so I love this quote. Calvin says, "Look at the stars. The universe just goes out forever and ever." And Hobbes, the tiger, says, "It kind of makes you wonder why man considers himself such a big screaming deal." Which leads me to the power of awe. So the power of awe is a really fantastic way to connect with nature. So awe is really kind of that feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends our current understanding of the world. And that's a definition by Keltner. And so when we're witnessing awe, our brain just kind of has this challenging difficulty of like, what is actually happening here? This is super cool, but I can't quite wrap my brain around it. So it's kind of like seeing the Northern Lights for the first time. It's like, wow, oh my God, this is just so beautiful. So I call the power of awe is seeing something that just blows your mind. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely amazing. And you know that you're seeing awe when you go, wow, or awe. You actually say the word awe. So what the power of awe does is research has shown that it can inspire feelings of humility and a more outward perspective. So it really kind of gets us out of ourselves. I call it like expanding our bubble of what we kind of consider our life and how we interpret to be. And it just gets bigger and more massive. So we tend to, be kinder to each other, or just remember that we're all in this together. As human beings, we're all basically on the same team trying to help each other survive. So the sense of awe promotes pro-social behaviors, and even just, little bits of awe can be beneficial. So how do we capture awe? And this is an example here of how it doesn't have to be something like a double rainbow. How often are we going to see that? Or the Northern Lights, which I've only seen twice in my lifetime. But this is a picture of a bee that is just taking a nap on a plant. And, I was walking, it was Lebanon Hills Regional Park, and I was taking a walk, and I saw these beautiful flowers and these bees on there, and I know from friends who raise bees that they take naps. And here I just could get up so close to it, and it was just amazing, and I just stopped and looked at it. And I'm sure people walking past me were like, what is she looking at? What is wrong with her? But so again, it's that slowing down and using all of your senses to observe and to smell and to hear, and if you know what you're doing, taste. Don't kill yourself by eating a poison berry or anything. And so you can use awe as an acronym. So A is just that attention, that awareness, being in the present moment of what is going on, not thinking about your to-do list or your grocery list. Wait is, again, just taking that pause and just observing. And then exhale is, again, to help you kind of relax and to be in that present moment. So the Buddhists call that using beginner's mind, or it's really kind of thinking like a child, where a lot of things are awe-inspiring to kids. And then seek out experiences that give you goosebumps. Here's another quote. This is by Annie Frank. I firmly believe that nature gives solace in all troubles. And then this is probably the magic question that you've all been wondering, is just how much time do I need in nature? Well, it kind of varies. There's no one size fits all, but some of the research that other researchers tend to gravitate towards is at least 120 minutes a week, or if you just round that up to 20 minutes a day. Other research has shown as little as 10 minutes can have a positive impact on your physical well-being. You can have a drop in heart rate, in cortisol levels. Cortisol is a chemical that measures our stress levels. If we have high cortisol for a long period of time, that's not good for us. So getting out in nature helps to lower our cortisol levels. And we just feel good after we go for a walk in nature. So I would say every little bit counts, even if you can only go outside, take a break during your lunch break and just go step out for a minute. That would be beneficial. I'd also like to emphasize that it's time in nature versus connection to nature. So if your goal is to get outside and go for a run, get your heart rate up and get some exercise, and to do that you need to have your earbuds in, by all means do that, but you're going to be less connected to nature. So if that's going to be your goal, then I would recommend taking out the earbuds so that you're able to more focus on everything that's going on around you. So there's kind of this nature pyramid, which is similar to the food pyramid. And I got to kind of read the small print here. So daily, it just kind of says, if you can get out into your neighborhood parks, go for a walk, and 30 minutes a day. But again, 20 minutes is fine. Every week, if you can do something a little bit bigger and bolder, like go maybe to a regional park, somewhere where you're less likely to have interactions with technology or vehicles, things like that. Less intrusion. Monthly, go to like a restful natural area like a national park, or we are the land of 10,000 lakes. We've got tons of rivers, which is one of my favorite things to do. And do that one weekend per month. And then if you can, annually or biannually, take a larger trip where maybe you're spending like a week or so immersed in nature. So I'm just going to touch really quickly on ecotherapy as clinical therapy, because this is something that's kind of new and still evolving. I've taken a couple workshops and classes on this, and we therapists are still trying to navigate insurance and ethical considerations on how to do this, but I would love to be able to do this myself, to be able to take my clients out in nature for walks. I think it would be so beneficial. So this would be a trained therapist that leads the client through different activities to develop a balanced relationship with nature that benefits their well-being. Again, this can be like walking therapy. Some people, I know some therapists take their clients out to public parks. I don't know that I would do that. But the sessions can be adapted to suit different levels of mobility and fitness, and different disorders and emotional needs. I think it would be really cool to just have like some designated land that you can walk on, and it is just for therapists to use. Like we could sign up. And actually there is a place called Recupera Acres, which is up by St. Cloud area or whatever, and they're doing that. So if you are a therapist and you're interested in that, but it is an hour drive, but that's an option for right now. So what some clinical therapists might do is incorporate nature into a traditional kind of therapeutic intervention. So for example, if a client is having problems with ruminating, maybe you take them to a stream and there might be leaves that are floating down the stream, and it's, well, put your concerns or your thoughts on that leaf and watch it float down the river. Or put your thoughts on a cloud and let's watch that cloud dissipate or move away. There's also some other types of ecotherapy approaches that could be effective in the treatment of trauma, specifically like wilderness adventure therapies, animal-assisted therapies, contemplative practices, meditation, and therapeutic gardening. And lastly, a quote by Lady Bird Johnson that I liked: "The environment is where we all meet, where we all have a mutual interest. It is the one thing all of us share." And this was a picture that I took in wintertime. I had to have at least one winter picture, in this presentation, at the Christine Center in Willard, Wisconsin. All right, and that's it. So now, thank you. I just want to let you know that I'm happy to do this presentation. If you have an organization or a group that you think might be interested in this, please contact me. I'm really passionate about this and would like to get the word out about spending more time in nature, because I really do think it's beneficial. So, yep.
I'll bring you the microphone.
And I'll admit too, I am still learning about this myself, so I am not an expert, and I know I buzzed through this really quickly. But there's also a lot of really great books out there if you want to learn more about this, and email me and I'm happy to give you a list of the books. And there's podcasts and a lot of good resources out there. Classes you can take on this. So
my question is about the wilderness adventure therapy. If you have any recommendations of where you could find that.
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know of anyone who does that in Minnesota. I just know there are some organizations that have, in maybe in other states, and I could be wrong, there might be some in Minnesota that have been able, like maybe if children maybe with behavioral problems, taking out into the wilderness and teaching them how to use wilderness skills to help empower them, and then have like group sessions of where they would do some group therapy together. So that's kind of what I was talking about, but I apologize, I don't, unless does someone else know of some?
I've heard of programs for veterans.
Yep, there are programs for veterans as well where, like especially in Colorado, they'll take them down the river and they'll spend like a week, paddling the rapids. Yep.
You showed your river thing that was in Minnesota. Where did you hear about that?
Yes, where was that?
Do you want to repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. She was asking the river rafting where I did that. Does anyone remember? It was the St. Louis River, but I don't remember the name of the organization that I went through. But if you just Google it, like the St. Louis River, Minnesota, White River rafting. Wow, say that 3 times really fast.
I think the Boundary Waters has groups too that they take out and do stuff like that.
Yes, and does this list also, like Wilderness Inquiry, Minnesota? They don't exactly do wilderness therapy, but they have wilderness adventures that you can take that I would call therapeutic. Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did an Outward Bound class more than 35 years ago. I was in my mid-20s, and I found it very helpful. And they have what's called Voyager Outward Bound here in Minnesota, and they go up to the Boundary Waters, and there's teamwork, there's rock climbing, believe it or not, in Minnesota, and obviously like canoeing and portaging on the lakes for several days, and it was and also time on your own, like a day or two, depending upon the length of the course.
Yeah.
That type of thing might be of interest to people. They have adult trips, and they have for teens and 20s.
Yep, and they also have opportunities for people who have physical disabilities or autism. So that's something to look into if you're interested in that.
I just wanted to mention too that there's the Access Pass that's through the national parks. And if you
Yes.
have a disability, that you can get a discount in national parks. And then our own park system honors that and gives you a lower rate for your state sticker.
Ah, wonderful. I did not know that. That's great news. So, and then they have free park day too every year. Both the national and Minnesota does.
And don't discount your public library. You can get a state park pass at your public library, as well as other nature-based passes for things that usually cost money.
Great. Oh, that's good to know too. Thank you.
You can walk through Lakewood Cemetery and
That's a beautiful place.
It's a
Yes.
beautiful place and you won't run into very many people there. There's tons of that. Yeah, I walked Lakewood Cemetery many times.
I love it there. I've been there for just a couple of events, and they have like wild turkeys, and I've seen
Yep.
deer, and
And
Yeah.
then on the other side of it is Rose Gardens, and
Yeah.
that's a beautiful place too.
yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Lakewood Cemetery is gorgeous. Gorgeous place to walk.
It's right on the end of Hamilton and 36th Street.
And they offer a lot of educational classes there too, and interesting classes at Lakewood. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? 2:24?
We're doing good, yeah.
Okay.
After this is the closing ceremony in the sanctuary, and so we'd invite you all to come to the sanctuary for the closing at the end of the day. In your pamphlet, there should be a bright green sheet. It's an evaluation. Thank you for holding it up. If you guys wouldn't mind, please filling that out before you leave today. There'll be a spot by the door to leave it and a chance to win prizes. Tara, thank you so much for your presentation. It was
Thank
really
you.
so informative.
Thanks for having me. Thank
Yes,
you.
and go enjoy the day.